Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be the continuation of this series all about standalones. If you haven't seen it, I will link down below. I did a video all about underrated standalones. Today it's going to be about the ones that are very popular but I think are worth the hype. And then I'm also going to do one about series that should have been a standalone. That should have been series, should have been a standalone. Whichever, I'll figure out a way to title that. But yes, today it's all about very popular books that I think you should read if you haven't. I've definitely talked about every single one of these books, but I'm going to go ahead and pretend nobody read them just in case, because I feel like I tend to assume everyone has read everything because they're so popular on Booktube, but it's not always the case. So I picked a book for every genre and I'm just going to be recommending some. I don't know about you, but especially right now, I don't really have the energy. I have commitment issues, basically. I don't really want to start 10 more series. So having books that are just one and done is so nice, and I feel like there aren't enough of them. And every time I like a book, I feel like there's always a surprise sequel or prequel, and I just want one book. So here we go. First category, we're gonna go with fantasy because I love fantasy. I've been half jokingly calling this historical fiction, but it's definitely fantasy. Madeline Miller as an author, I have both of her books in here because why not? First off, Circe. I adore her books. She tends to do mythology retellings, which are just fantastic. She really brings the characters to life. She changes a few things. She kind of humanized them a little bit more. In this case, she's obviously retelling Circe, and I love witches, so this is just a really satisfying read. I highly recommend the audiobook because of the narrator, her voice, amazing. And then her second book is The Song of Achilles, which obviously follows Achilles, and same thing, you follow Achilles growing up and then, you know, brings you to the fight. In both cases, fantastic story. I love her writing. I can't recommend her enough. She's very famous. She's coming out with another book, I believe next year, which I cannot wait to read, and I've been saying how I'm hoping she's going to bring a retelling of Medusa's story or anything else really, and I will read it. So if you haven't checked out any of her books yet, you need to. Definitely some of the best standalones, because that's what we're going for, that I can recommend. Love them. One of my other favorite genre is sci-fi, and I have to recommend The Martian by Andy Weir because I find this very accessible. It's obviously standalone, but mostly I find this the perfect book to start reading again, especially if you haven't seen the movie, but even if you have, this is such a fantastic book. I currently have this edition with the face on it. I don't like movie tie-in editions, but it is what it is. I'll put the actual one. There you go. That's better. I really adored this book. Once again, actually, I would recommend it as an audiobook because it's one of the best ones that I've ever listened to. It's so funny. Obviously, there's a bit of science in there, but it's, again, pretty well explained. I feel like it's very accessible. You're following this man who is left for dead on Mars, and he has to survive on its own until someone can possibly try and come and save him. A lot of potatoes, a lot of science, a lot of laughing, in my opinion. Can't recommend this book enough. It was an audiobook that I've listened to more than once, which I don't reread books pretty much ever, but I love that one. Which, by the way, the author also came out with the book Artemis. Don't recommend it, but he's coming out with another one next year, which I will read and let you know as soon as I can if it's worth a read or not. I try to recommend this book as often as I can because why not? Flowers for Algernon. I read this on Booktube, one of the first books that I've read when I started Booktube, and I went into it completely blind. I knew nothing about it, like nothing, only that there was a mouse, which there is, but I knew nothing else. And I can't believe teachers make kids read this because I would have cried for sure. And a lot of it would have went way above my head. But I do feel like if you are at least 16, you will get so much out of this book. You're following the main character, Charlie? Yes, Charlie. And he was born with an unusually low IQ. And he goes through some experiment that might change that. And definitely a book that will make you think a lot. You will possibly cry. And it just makes you think quite a bit. A very, very interesting topic. And every time I recommend this book, people end up loving it too. I've never heard actually anyone say that they didn't like it, which if you have, please let me know. I would actually be curious. But yes, fantastic book. It's definitely on the older side compared to the other books in this video. Yes, it was published in 1959 for the first time, but definitely stood the test of time, definitely still very relevant. Let's keep going with the crying. I don't cry easily, but I feel like some of the books that stay with me the most are definitely the ones that made me tear up, because that's how it works. This one though, I didn't just tear up. I actually was bawling reading it, and most people do. A Little Life. I feel like people have very extreme reactions to this book. They either hate it or they absolutely love it, which is my case. The writing is stunning. You're following 4 characters who are friends. They meet in university and you kind of follow them throughout their lives, and then you hear more about their past at the same time. And like I said, beautiful writing. The characters are so attaching, and it is the most heartbreaking book I've ever read in my entire life. And I have been calling it torture porn. Because frankly, every time you think things cannot go worse, they do. But you will not, hopefully, regret reading it. I eventually would want to reread it, but I don't think I can actually take it. I went through this book quite fast. It's a pretty big book, but the last 100 pages took me a week to read, because I would read 10 pages, put it down because I would start crying. And again, I do not cry easily, especially while reading a book. But yes, absolutely love these characters. Jude, and especially Willem, will stay with me for absolutely ever. And yes, if you need a good cry, this is it. And again, it's one book. After that, you're done. You don't have to keep going. I hate cliffhangers, especially at the end of the book, and you have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years for the next book. With this one, it's one and done. You will not want to read more. This one also made me feel all the feels. I'll Give You the Sun, which is actually a YA contemporary, which is not my usual genre, but definitely the best one that I've read. I actually did a video about the best books that I've read per genre out of the 400s that I've read since starting Booktube. I'll link that down below if you're interested. And a few of these did make it, actually. In this one, you're following a set of twins, a boy and a girl, and each chapter you flip through one of them. One of them is when they are 13, they are close, and then you're following them also through her when they are 16 and they don't talk anymore and you don't know what happened. And fantastic story. I did enjoy the writing. There's a ton of metaphors, which I know will not work for everyone. Personally, really enjoyed it. I definitely felt like it reflected how artistic and creative both characters were. And yeah, I feel like in the beginning, you really root for one character, and then by the end, I felt even more touched by the other story. So definitely keep going. See, this is why I hate when there are faces on covers. My camera decides to just focus on them. This is why I don't like you, Matt Damon. So yes, if you were looking for a new YA contemporary to read, you need to check that one out. I find that a lot of thrillers are standalones, but I feel like there are more and more series. So I wanted to recommend some really popular ones that I personally think are absolutely worth the hype, and I had to mention Blake Crouch. I adore his books. I do feel like they stress me out. I am on the edge of my seat from the first page to the last. I just want to know what's going to happen. The topics are really interesting. I feel like they would make amazing movies. The writing style is not the most flowery, if that's a thing that you care about. Personally, not a big deal for me. And the characters are not the best developed. But again, I can totally look past that because of the story and the pace. Let's start with Dark Matter. It's the first one that I've read by him actually ever, and totally blew my mind. You follow a main character who is a 40-year-old teacher, and one day he is kidnapped, and then when he wakes up, his wife is not his wife, his son is nowhere to be found, and he just doesn't recognize his life, and he's trying to figure out what happened and, you know, go back to them. Every time I thought I knew where this was going, there would be another twist, which again went deeper and deeper into this weird sci-fi stuff, because I do like thrillers that have a sci-fi twist to them, and you just need to read it. I don't want to say more because I feel like that would be a spoiler at this point, so pick it up. You have nothing to lose, really. It's very popular, and I personally think it was absolutely worth the hype. The next one by him is Recursion. I actually read this as an arc, so at the time it wasn't very popular, but now it is, so I can include it here, and I think it's totally worth the hype because the first half I was pretty confused. You're following a main character who's a detective? They just say a cop. And he's trying to figure out what's going on because he is investigating a bunch of people killing themselves or having false memories. Like they think that their life is not a life, and I'll keep it vague. And then you're also following the story, this neuroscientist who is trying to develop a way to cure Alzheimer. A lot of things happen. Once again, things go way crazier than I expected, but in a really good way. Definitely was sitting at the edge of my seat the whole time. And once again, it's just standalone. I want more standalone. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it would be practical to have a bunch of recommendations in one video. Please let me know in the comment section your personal, very popular standalones that you absolutely adore and want to recommend that you think are worth the hype. I will be doing probably a part 2 for this video and the previous one that I've done about underrated ones, because I do have more recommendations to give. And don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe, because this series is definitely not done. I need to talk about the books or the series that should have been standalones. I will be putting more videos on the screen, including the ones that I mentioned about the underrated ones, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye.